Welcome to the Austin Method, where we help you develop the skills of square dancing. Square dancing as a topic is big. This program is divided into the individual videos covering the calls, and then there are the general information videos. This video is part of the general information videos. You can think of them as reference material. Don't think of them as prerequisites. Some of them are longer and you're wanting to dance, so you may not want to watch from beginning to end. If you've got time, it's well worth the watch, but if you're in a hurry, go ahead and move on to learning the calls. There are two videos I would think of as prerequisites. That's the learning and practice video. That gives you tips and tricks and helps you organize your learning. It'll give you the most efficient way to maximize your learning of the skills of square dancing. The second one, it's the site walkthrough, and it'll show you how to navigate this website, how to find the pieces and parts you may be looking for. Those two are prerequisites. Otherwise, if you want to move on to the skills of square dancing, go ahead. But if you got the time, this is some great material. If you don't, make sure you come back as you get further into it. Come back to these materials and go over them. Even if you go through them at the beginning, come back to them, because as you gain vocabulary, you will get more from it in a second viewing as you get further along. So without any further ado, let's get to the video. All right. Welcome to the introduction to square dancing and the Austin Method. So square dancing is entertainment. Square dancing is entertainment, and as with all entertainment, whether it's watching sports, going to a play, playing soccer, whatever it is, entertainment is to escape reality. Square dancing gives you that opportunity, in fact, more than a lot of other entertainments, because it's very immersive. Square dancing is easy. This is the story we tell ourselves, we tell our friends to get them to come square dancing, and square dancing is easy. There are no steps to learn. There's very little leading and following. The choreography and the flow are supplied to you by the caller. So, you don't have to think of anything. You just do what the caller says, and all 8 of you do what the caller says. And for 15-20 minutes, which is about the length of one tip, you are totally immersed in the activity. You can't think of anything else, because square dancing is kind of an advanced form of Simon Says, except the caller doesn't actually have to say Simon Says, but it's Simon Says to music, and it's a lot of fun. Square dancing is community. Square dancing is nothing if not teamwork. 9 people have to be working together. That's the caller and a square of 8 people, as a minimum, have to be working together to make it really work. Now, there are ways to dance with a half square and whatnot, but full square dancing is 9 people minimum working together. Often there are many squares on the floor and one caller, or sometimes duets or quartets of callers, but it is very much about teamwork. Square dancing is a skill, and as a skill, it relies on the individual contribution of each member of the team. Each member of the team has a responsibility to that team. If somebody doesn't go where they're supposed to go and they don't show up where they're supposed to be, it breaks down, which is what we call it, breaking down. And you have to do some stuff to recover to get back into the dance. But we'll cover that in another video. The point is, there's a lot of individual contribution to that team and a lot of responsibility to the team. Trust. You've got to trust those other 8 people that they're going to be there, that they're going to do the calls correctly, that they know what they're doing, that they're not going to let you get lost, because everybody gets a little bit out of focus and misses a call or mishears a call. So you have to have trust in your fellow members of your square that they'll be there when they can, and that they'll help you when you can't. Which brings us to forgiveness. Square dancing teaches forgiveness. It teaches it very well, because it is teamwork. You either succeed or you fail. It's not a graded A, B, C, D. It's A or F. You either made it through the tip or you didn't. Luckily, there's another tip after that, and you can get back into the tip, so it's not like you have to take the report card home to your mom. But it's definitely a pass-fail. And if you mess up, you feel bad. If your team members mess up, they feel bad. You have to learn to forgive them, and you have to learn to forgive yourself. If you don't forgive yourself, then you're beating yourself up for the next 3 or 4 or 5 calls, and you're going to mess up even worse. So you learn pretty quick to just forgive yourself, move on, and get back in the dance. Worldwide friendship. There are square dancers all over the world. There are some particular hot spots of square dancing, and that's Japan, Germany, Australia, the Scandinavian countries, Norway, Sweden, and then of course America, because it is originally and centralized in America, the United States of America. Square dancing is a challenge. So we said square dancing is easy, and it is easy in that there aren't steps to learn, and it's easier than most forms of dance. And it's also easy as a physical activity, because if you can walk and shake hands at the same time, you basically have all the skills that you need for square dancing. Actually, walking isn't even necessarily required. There are wheelchair clubs that do wheelchair square dancing, so not even that's quite a requirement. But square dancing is a challenge, mostly to learn. There's a lot of mental activity to square dancing. You have to be able to know what the call is, execute the call. Within certain number of beats of the music, you need to step off on the next beat after the call is given, and there's a lot of work that goes into figuring out what to do at that moment. And so you have to remain focused, you have to have your attention in there, and you have to know the definitions, which is the vocabulary. Square dancing as a skill is very different from a lot of skills. It's not like basketball and learning to shoot baskets and teaching your muscles to do that. It's much more a mental and a vocabulary skill. In fact, square dancing is all about vocabulary. The calls each have a definition. The learning of that call, recognizing it as it's given, and knowing what to do, apply the definition immediately upon the next beat, is what the skill of square dancing is all about. And you have to take that vocabulary and those definitions, and you have to drive it into being a skill, or into a very instinctive level. There are a lot of calls that are 2 and 4 beats long, which means they come very quickly. If you're thinking about the definition when you hear it, it's already too late. When you hear those 2 and 4, those small length calls, you have to step off on that very next beat and get it over with, and not be thinking about its definition, because you're immediately going to get the next call. So developing a skill with the vocabulary is what square dancing is all about. And in that, it's pretty unique. I can't think of another activity or form of entertainment that is so immersive and so involved and involves so much vocabulary. Now, there's always a vocabulary involved in a skill. In the skill of archery, you have fletching, and you have bows, and you have cams, and you have a lot of vocabulary that goes with other skills, but the vocabulary isn't necessarily the skill. Focus it can be very challenging to remain focused for 15 minutes at a time, which is the typical length of a tip. And nobody really can. Your focus will wander, but square dancing does teach you how to extend that focus and to get it back and to quickly refocus and to catch up. So square dancing is challenging in terms of focus, but it also strengthens your ability to focus. Not everyone can do it well, but if you're willing to put in the work, if you're willing to do the exercises, if you're willing to put time in on the dance floor, everyone can learn to do it pretty dang good, and most people can do it well. So this is where we give you the skills to do that. So square dancing and character. The first thing square dancing teaches you is humility, because nobody is so good that they never make mistakes. Because it takes focus, because it takes hearing things just right, because it is so exact, it's pass-fail. When you don't hear the call right, or when you lose focus, you can mess up the square, and you've just messed up 7 other people, and you all have to get back together and recover, which is okay, but it definitely keeps you humble. No matter how good you get, you'll always make mistakes. Forgiveness. We already talked about forgiveness, but that's the flip side of humility. Once you've learned humility, you learn to forgive others much easier. And because square dancing requires such focus, you also learn to forgive yourself a lot better, because you can't keep dancing if you're beating yourself up. Humor. We do a lot of laughing in square dancing. Maybe not quite at the beginning, because people are pretty busy trying to apply the definitions, stay focused, hear the calls. But when you get a little further in, you realize there's a lot going on that you weren't hearing at the beginning. The callers telling jokes. Sometimes the dancers are telling jokes, although they have to be careful that they don't overlay the caller. And then there's sometimes just the eye contact, and people break out laughing because it's stressful, but it's fun and it's funny, and you got to maintain your sense of humor. That's what gets you through those humility moments and helps you with the forgiveness. Pride. Square dancing is also a great source of pride, because you do know that it takes a lot of work and effort to get to where you can do it. It takes a lot of effort to get, not a lot of effort, it takes effort to get through a tip and to stay focused for 15 minutes at a time, and to do the teamwork that needs to be done to get to the end successfully. So when you do, it's worth a celebration, and it's worth taking a little pride in that. The Austin Method. We call it TAM. It is the website and the YouTube videos that you're watching now that we put together to help teach the square dancing technical skills. And that is, you can go to theaustinmethod.com and learn a little bit more and see how we've organized it if you happen to be here on YouTube. It is not square dancing. Okay, square dancing is to a live caller with a lot of variety, with a lot of other people. Square dancing is much more fun than the Austin Method. Now, the Austin Method can be fun, don't get me wrong, but it is not square dancing. It is drills and lessons and videos and things to help you develop the skills of square dancing so that you can go out and do square dancing. Group classes and TAM. So, group classes is the way we've traditionally taught square dancing. We bring a bunch of people together. We teach them from the very beginning all together. There are issues with group classes, as there are with everything else. Primary issue is that you're going at the speed of the slowest member of the class. Another problem with group classes is if that you have to miss a couple of weeks in a row. That can be very difficult because the classes are progressive. The other problem with group classes is there's no individual instruction. There's no exercises. There's no, now the callers are always ready to help you between the tips and before and after and help people. But there was no place for people to do homework. There was no place for people to help their friends with things. There was no materials for it, which made it really difficult. So that's why the Austin method is the perfect partner to group classes. It gives people that are in group classes a place to do homework. It gives them a place to do some studying. It gives them a place to get materials to help their friends. So it's the perfect partnership with group classes. And if you can find, you can do TAM without group classes, and highly recommend it in anticipation of doing group classes, highly recommend it in terms of reviewing group classes. It can also be done without group classes. If there are no group classes scheduled anytime soon, you can do it anyway. If there are no group classes at all in your area, I used to live in Alaska. While creating this material, we kept in mind, if we were a small Alaskan village that didn't have access to a caller or anything but the internet, how do we create the materials that are complete enough that somebody in that village could learn square dancing? And that's what we've done, or tried to do. So the Austin method was created to be accessible through the internet, effective in that we've put a lot of research and time into learning methods and training and the order of the material, and fun, because one of the challenges of group classes is that you're learning in a group environment. That's not fun for everybody. Some people don't like to learn in group environments. Some people get embarrassed at their mistakes. The Austin method helps with that. It gives you a place to practice and get your skills up before you ever get into a public environment. We've broken the Austin method down into the number of couples required to do the exercises or to learn the calls. Some calls can be learned with one couple, some can be learned with two couple, and some you require a full couple because the formations rely on there being a full 4 couples. Because the formations rely on having all 8 people in the square. The one couple materials, about 50% of the calls. The two couple materials, about 30% of the calls. And the 4 couples, another 20%. And you notice the one couple and two couple changed. That was actually on purpose because it's fuzzy. Don't quote us on this, but the numbers are fuzzy. The bottom line is, though, with two couples, typically the couple that invited you to learn to square dance or another couple from your class, you can get together and learn about 80% of the skills necessary, practice, learn, review, strengthen the skills necessary to do square dancing. We've delivered this material through, there's always text available, including closed caption, and we recommend that you turn that on. It helps strengthen learning vocabulary when you understand every word and when you see the word, physically read it while you're hearing it. That gives you a couple of methods of input and is more likely to help stick. Videos, we demonstrate everything, and an animated modeling, which we'll show at a later point, but it's called Taminations, and it looks like little boxes and circles moving around on a grid. Gives you the overhead view of where you're going and what's going on in the square, a view that you don't normally get and can be very helpful to a lot of people. This is a chart that's available on the website that shows how we've broken the material down. You can see that the one couple materials on the first row, two couple materials on the second row, and then it says 4 couple material and then Sicilian circle and dive through. What we've done is we've broken out the material. That last section is the material we normally do on a fun night or a community dance or at a birthday party, that kind of thing. So that's the material that you would learn really, really quick. It's learned in an hour of just getting introduced to square dancing. But it's also the stuff that's less defined and a little more fuzzy. We include it to be complete, but it's material that's best learned in a group setting. We'll cover more of this at another time. Thank you for visiting the Austin Method. We hope to see you on the dance